It's crazy how two sports can be so similar and so different. The argument of which hitting sport, baseball and softball, is harder has been going on for over a decade. Nope, over a century. So get ready to hop in the plate and get ready to hit. Today we're going to be talking about the dimension of the field, the player skills, and then the mental strategical part of both games. As the bat cracks and you start running to first, you come across your first argument, the dimension of field. A baseball field is 400 feet from home to center field. The bases are 90 feet apart, and the pitching mound is 60 feet 6 inches from home plate. A softball field is only 200 feet with 60 feet per base and then 43 feet from home plate to the pitching mound. A baseball is also pretty small, only 9 inches in circumference, so the softball is 12 inches. The first argument for baseball being harder is that since the field is bigger, the defenders have a lot more space on the field to cover than a softball player would. And then a softball player would say, well, since the field is smaller, you're going to have a faster reaction time. But that's not true, because in college baseball, the average exit velo for a baseball player is 90 to 110, which gives about 0.9 seconds for the ball to reach the defender. And in softball, the exit velo is about 70 to 80, which gives about 1.2 seconds for the ball to reach the defender. Another thing is baseball players have to hit the ball at a tighter angle for it to go out of the park, unlike a softball player, which has a higher angle to get it out, as you can see here. Pitching, a baseball mound is 60 feet 6 inches away from home plate. A softball is only 43, so baseball is trying to hit the strike zone, which is the same size, from further away, and they also got to take into consideration the -7-degree slope as the pitching mound is raised 10 inches. As we round first and head on to second base, we take a look not at the field but at the actual players themselves. An argument for softball is that softball players don't get a push off the mound. However, softball players get a 6-inch stride, which provides a lot of momentum in their throw. Baseball players have to rely purely on how hard they can push off the mound. Another thing is softball players pitch underhand, which puts a lot less torque on the arm, a lot less work on the arm than a baseball player. A fastball goes around 88 to 92 miles an hour, while a softball goes around 60 to 65 miles an hour. And according to Baseball 360, the reaction time for a baseball is 0.45 seconds, and the reaction time to a softball is 0.35 seconds, which a softball player says, well, that is less reaction time, but however, a 1.1 second reaction time doesn't really matter because the human reaction time is 0.3 seconds anyways. Now, there's no doubt that the rise ball in softball is one of the hardest pitches to hit. That rises 6 inches off the plate. They also have the fastball and the drop ball, which drops about 8 inches. However, baseball players have a curveball that can drop up to 40 inches, the fastball, and they have pitches that can go 6 inches glove side or arm side. We can look on how much harder hitting is in baseball just based off the statistics. If your batting average is 300, you're a little over average and considered an all-star. A little over average and considered an all-star in softball is 500. If you're consistently hitting 1 out of every 3 hits in baseball, you're considered a Hall of Fame player and one of the greatest of all time. And if you hit 1 out of 3 in softball, you're surely to be put on the bench. So now let's round second and head on to the mental, strategical part of the game. Baseball fields are bigger, so there's a lot more gaps for the defenders to worry about. And since the field is bigger, that means the throws are bigger too, which will be which you'll need to find cutoff man to find your way in. Bruce Bolt, another thing of softball is the slap hit. Bruce Bolt explains the slap hit perfectly. It's where the left-handed batter can run through the batter's box and hit a soft hit to third base and just run out the 60 feet. The closest thing that baseball has to this is the baseball bunt, which doesn't really go any far since you don't have a running start. It barely goes over 10 feet, and it's an extra 30 feet to run, and it rarely works. Another thing is that baseball players have to be more focused on their stamina and energy, since baseball players play for 9 innings, while softball only plays for 7 innings. And that's just strategical. Another thing is the mental part of it. For baseball, you're only succeeding 1 out of every 3 times, which is really good numbers, but it doesn't feel good. While a softball player might succeed 3 out of 5 times, just to be normal. The biggest argument that softball players have had is when Ted Williams, the best hitter in baseball, got 8 at-bats against Joan Joyce. Joan Joyce was the best softball pitcher of all time, and she managed to strike Ted Williams out 8 times in a row. Ted Williams then said it's the hardest pitcher he's ever faced ever. But you got to understand that that wasn't Ted Williams' games, and that softball and baseball takes a lot of time to adjust to. As you turn third and head on your way to home, you think about what you've thought about the past run. The dimension of field, the player skills, and the mental/strategy part of the game. And as you slide into home, you're called safe inside the park home run.